In Seoul, the Grand Lotus Crown Hotel stood tall, a glittering monument of wealth and exclusivity. Inside its penthouse suite, the city's youngest billionaire, Kang Min-ho, battled with demons unseen by the world. At just 32, he had inherited his father's empire, multiplied its worth, and was hailed as one of Asia's most brilliant business minds. Yet, wealth and prestige didn't shield him from loneliness, nor from the destructive coping habits he picked up. That night, after a business party filled with fake smiles and endless toasts, Min-ho returned to his suite under the heavy fog of alcohol and tranquilizers he had taken to calm his restless mind. His eyes were glazed, his heart unsteady. For once, the polished mask of the billionaire cracked. As he staggered in, Amina, a young African woman working as a room attendant, was quietly replacing the flowers in the suite. She was not supposed to still be there, but fate had planted her in his path. He stopped at the doorframe, his words slurred but vulnerable. "Please stay. Don't go." She froze, confused. "Sir, I'm just here to tidy the room. I'll leave." But Min-ho dropped onto the couch, his eyes glassy with unshed tears. "No, stay with me. I don't want to be alone tonight. Please, just sleep here." His voice cracked, carrying the weight of a man who had everything but comfort. Amina hesitated. She had grown used to wealthy men treating her like invisible staff or worse, looking down on her. But here was this billionaire, stripped of pride, begging, not for pleasure, but for company. "Sir, you're not well," she whispered gently. "You need rest." He leaned forward, desperate, his vulnerability raw. "Then let me rest, but don't leave me. If you go, I'll drown in my own thoughts." Something in his brokenness touched her. Against her own doubts, she sat quietly in the armchair nearby. She watched him close his eyes, his breathing uneven. She thought he would fall asleep, but instead he whispered, "Do you know how lonely it is to be surrounded by people who only want your money? Do you know what it's like to be celebrated, but never loved?" Her chest tightened. She did know. Far from home, working endless shifts, invisible in a city that rarely welcomed foreigners, she too had lived unseen. That night she didn't leave. She stayed, listening to his broken confessions. He didn't touch her, only asked her to stay until his trembling eased. By morning, she thought he wouldn't remember her face. But he did. When the sun rose, Min-ho blinked against the light, expecting emptiness. Instead, he found Amina still there, quietly folding the blanket she had used. Her presence grounded him in a way money never could. "You stayed," he said softly, almost disbelieving. "Yes," she answered, "because you asked me to." Something stirred in his chest. In her eyes, there was no greed, no calculation, only sincerity. And for the first time in years, he felt seen not as a billionaire, but as a man. From that day on, their paths intertwined. What began as an unexpected plea in the haze of drugs and despair blossomed into something neither of them had planned: love. Not the shallow kind he had always been offered, but the kind born from vulnerability, from being seen at one's weakest and still accepted. And in the heart of Seoul, amid glass towers and flashing cameras, the world's youngest billionaire fell deeply, unexpectedly, and irrevocably in love with the hotel room attendant who once chose to stay. After that night, Amina thought it was over. That Kang Min-ho, billionaire heir of an empire, would return to his glittering life and forget the quiet African attendant who stayed by his side. But she was wrong. The very next evening, when she came to the suite to do her duties, she found him waiting. No glass of wine in hand, no cocktail of pills beside him. Just Min-ho sitting by the window, staring at the city lights. "You came," he said softly, as though relieved. "I'm only doing my work," she replied, trying to keep her composure. But Min-ho stood, walked toward her, and stopped just close enough that she could feel the weight of his gaze. "No, you came. You stayed when you didn't have to. And I can't stop thinking about you." Her breath caught. No man of his stature had ever spoken to her like that. No man had ever looked at her as though she was more than just a background presence. You shouldn't say things like that to me, she whispered. I'm just an employee. You're not just anything, he replied firmly. His voice softened, vulnerable. For the first time in years, I felt safe with someone. With you. Don't tell me that's nothing. His hand trembled as he reached for hers. She hesitated, but the warmth in his palm was honest, untainted by pride or lust. Slowly, she let her fingers rest against his. That night, they didn't need alcohol, nor the haze of loneliness to bind them. They sat together on the couch, talking until the early hours. He told her about the emptiness of his wealth, the weight of his father's legacy, and the insomnia that haunted him. She told him of her family back home, the sacrifices she made to support them, and the way Seoul sometimes felt like a cage. By dawn, Minho leaned closer, his forehead brushing against hers. Amina, you've given me more peace in 2 nights than I've known in a lifetime. Her heart thundered. She wanted to resist, remind him of the gulf between their worlds, but his sincerity disarmed her. When he pressed a gentle kiss on her hand, she felt something inside her melt. Days turned into weeks. Minho found excuses to see her, sometimes requesting housekeeping just to hear her voice, sometimes sneaking away from board meetings to share lunch with her in secret. He laughed more, smiled easier. The darkness in his eyes slowly faded, replaced with light whenever she was near. And Amina, she tried to guard her heart, but the walls crumbled each time he looked at her as though she were the only person in the world. His affection wasn't showy or entitled. It was quiet, reverent, like he couldn't believe she was real. One rainy night, as thunder rumbled over Seoul, Minho appeared in the staff corridor where she was folding linens. He was drenched, having run through the storm without an umbrella. His eyes searched hers, desperate. I don't care about the rules, the headlines, or what anyone will say, he confessed, breathless. Amina, I can't pretend anymore. I love you. Her hands froze mid-fold. The billionaire heir, Asia's golden bachelor, was confessing love to her, a hotel attendant far from home. Tears stung her eyes. Do you even understand what you're saying? She whispered. Your world and mine, they're too different. People will hate me. Then let them, he said firmly, taking her hands in his wet ones. Because without you, I'll go back to drowning. With you, I can breathe. Choose me, Amina, please. Something inside her gave way. Slowly, she rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his, tentative at first, then deeper as his arms wrapped tightly around her. The kiss was not one of drunken need, but of 2 souls finally colliding in truth. For Minho, it wasn't just love. It was salvation. For Amina, it wasn't just romance. It was being truly seen. And in that stormy night, the billionaire and the hotel attendant sealed a bond no power, no wealth, and no prejudice could ever undo. After that stormy night, their lives changed forever. What began as secret meetings in quiet corners of the hotel grew into something deeper, something neither could hide. Minho became a different man. His assistants noticed he no longer arrived at meetings drunk or disheveled. His board members whispered about how their CEO seemed more focused, more alive. And those close to him realized he often disappeared into the hotel, though none could guess why. For Amina, every moment with him felt like stolen time. They shared late-night walks along the Han River, disguising themselves under hooded jackets. He would slip his hand into hers and say, "Let them call me foolish. For the first time in my life, I don't care what anyone thinks." But the outside world wasn't blind for long. One evening, a tabloid photographer caught them together. Amina's laughter, his gaze fixed only on her. The picture spread like wildfire. Kang Min-ho, Asia's youngest billionaire, with mystery African woman. The backlash was instant. Headlines screamed. Social media burned with cruel comments. He's lost his mind. She's after his money. How could he shame his family like this? When Amina saw the news, her heart sank. She avoided Minho for days, fearing she had ruined his reputation. But he found her in the laundry room, where she sat alone, tears wetting her apron. "Don't you dare run from me," he said, his voice shaking. "Min-ho, this will destroy you," she whispered. "Look at what they're saying about me, about us. You're a billionaire. You're not just anything," he cut in, dropping to his knees before her. "I've spent my whole life surrounded by women who smiled for the cameras but never looked at me the way you do. Do you think I care about their opinions? Amina, you're the only real thing in my world." Her tears fell freely now, but his arms were already around her. And in that embrace, she felt a love so fierce it drowned out the noise of the world. But the real test came when his family intervened. One night, his mother, Madame Kong, a woman of steel and tradition, summoned him to the family estate. Amina was not invited. At the grand dining table, she looked at her son coldly. "Min-ho, end this nonsense. That girl is beneath you. A hotel maid? A foreigner? You will ruin our legacy." Min-ho's fists tightened, but his voice was steady. "Mother, our legacy means nothing if it doesn't include happiness. And she is my happiness." Her eyes flashed. "You think this is love? It's a scandal. It will not last." But Min-ho rose, his jaw set with a determination she had never seen before. "Then I'd rather lose everything than lose her." And for the first time, Madame Kong realized her son was no longer the broken boy she once pitied. He was a man who had found his reason to fight. Meanwhile, Amina, unaware of the heated battle behind closed doors, made a decision of her own. She began avoiding him again, not because she didn't love him, but because she loved him too much. She couldn't bear to be the reason he lost his empire. When Min-ho finally found her on the rooftop of the hotel one night, gazing at the Seoul skyline, she tried to push him away. "You deserve someone from your world, Min-ho. Someone who won't drag you down." But he stepped closer, his voice low and unshakable. "My world was empty before you, and if I must choose between an empire without love or a simple life with you, I'll choose you every time." Then he kissed her under the city lights, slow and certain, as if sealing a promise no power could break. For the first time, Amina believed him, and for the first time, she allowed herself to dream, not just of surviving, but of a love that defied every boundary. The days that followed were a whirlwind. The media chased every shadow of their romance, headlines screaming across Seoul. "Billionaire CEO rejects tradition for hotel attendants." "Mystery African woman captures Kong Min-ho's heart." "Family legacy in jeopardy?" For Min-ho, the attention was exhausting but bearable. For Amina, it was brutal. She was followed, insulted on the streets, whispered about at work. Some staff at the hotel began treating her coldly, their smiles now laced with jealousy. One evening, as she carried a tray of fresh towels, a coworker sneered, "It must be nice to climb into a billionaire's bed and call it love." The words stung. Amina locked herself in the supply room, fighting tears. But Min-ho arrived minutes later, having heard. He held her shoulders firmly. "Don't let their poison touch you. If they can't see who you are, that's their blindness, not yours." His conviction strengthened her, but the weight of disapproval only grew heavier. Madame Kong launched a quiet campaign to separate them, sending private investigators to dig into Amina's past, leaking stories to the press about her being an opportunist. One night, Min-ho stormed into his mother's study. "Enough! You can attack me, but not her. She has done nothing but love me." Madame Kong, unshaken, replied, "You think love will protect you from the world? When the board pulls their investments, when the shareholders question your judgment." But Min-ho only smirked faintly. "Then let them. I'll rebuild it all with my own hands. But I will not rebuild without her." It was the first time his mother realized her son's love was not a passing obsession. It was his revolution. Meanwhile, Amina began to see sides of Min-ho no one else had. Beneath the billionaire's polished image was a man who longed for the simple things. Holding hands in the park, laughing over cheap street food, watching movies in silence. He found joy in the ordinary with her, and she found magic in the way he looked at her, like she was the rarest treasure he had ever known. One quiet night, He brought her to his private villa on Jeju Island, far from the flashing cameras. The ocean roared outside, and the stars glimmered above them. I used to think love was just another business deal, Minho confessed, his arm around her as they sat on the deck. Something you arrange, sign, and endure. But with you, it's different. It's terrifying and beautiful all at once. And it makes me feel alive. Amina leaned into him, her voice soft. Do you ever regret it? Choosing me, even with the whole world against us. He turned to her, cupping her face gently. The only thing I regret is not finding you sooner. Their lips met under the vast night sky, slow, lingering, tender. And in that moment, the world outside ceased to matter. But love, no matter how strong, cannot stay hidden forever. Upon their return to Seoul, the paparazzi ambushed them at the airport. Flashbulbs exploded. Reporters shouted questions. Minho didn't hesitate. He clasped Amina's hand tightly and walked with her through the crowd, head high, refusing to let go. The next morning, newspapers carried the photo. Kang Minho holds hands with mystery love, unashamed. And for the first time, the world saw not just a scandal, but a man unapologetically in love. The photo of Minho boldly holding Amina's hand at the airport became the talk of the nation. Some saw it as reckless, others romantic, but no one could deny its power. Kang Minho, the untouchable billionaire, was no longer hiding. Yet with that courage came consequences. At the next board meeting, the tension was suffocating. A line of gray-haired directors sat stiffly, their eyes sharp with disapproval. One of them spoke bluntly. Chairman Kang, this affair is hurting investor confidence. We cannot allow personal indulgences to threaten the company's reputation. Minho leaned back in his chair, calm but unyielding. If my love life threatens your confidence more than my vision, then perhaps it is you who should reconsider your place here. The room fell silent. No one had ever seen him so resolute. Meanwhile, Amina faced her own storm. Anonymous letters slid under her hotel locker, filled with cruel words. Go back to where you came from. You don't belong here. But instead of breaking, she grew stronger. Each night, when Minho came to her side, she realized she wasn't fighting alone. Together, they created their own world in stolen hours, cooking late-night meals in his penthouse, dancing barefoot in the living room, sharing dreams about a life beyond wealth and scandal. One evening, he surprised her. Come with me, he said, blindfolding her playfully. He led her through the hotel rooftop until she felt the night breeze. When he removed the cloth, her breath caught. Hundreds of fairy lights surrounded them, glowing softly against the city skyline. A table stood at the center with her favorite food, not gourmet dishes, but the simple African meals she had once told him she missed. How did you? She whispered, tears filling her eyes. I listened, he said simply. You've given me more than the world ever has, Amina. Tonight, I wanted to give you a piece of home. Under the fairy lights, they danced. No music but their laughter, no audience but the stars. And when he kissed her, it was gentle yet full of promise. But fate wasn't done testing them. One morning, Amina was summoned to Madame Kang's residence. She arrived nervous, expecting another scolding, but what she found was different. The older woman studied her quietly, then spoke. My son defies me because of you. I want to know, what have you given him that all the wealth in the world could not? Amina lowered her gaze. Nothing but honesty. Nothing but love. Madame Kang's eyes softened, just slightly. You understand, don't you, that the world will never welcome you easily? That if you stay by his side, you will always fight shadows. Yes, Amina replied firmly. But if those shadows mean I can stand beside him, I'll fight them. For the first time, Madame Kang didn't reply with anger. Instead, she turned away, silent. That evening, Minho found Amina on the hotel rooftop again. She looked at him, tears in her eyes but a smile on her lips. Your mother, she may never fully accept me. But I'm not afraid anymore, Minho. Because with you, I have all the strength I need. He pulled her close, his forehead resting on hers. Then let's stop hiding. Let's stop fighting in secret. Amina, I don't want a love lived in the shadows. I want the world to know, you're mine, and I'm yours. And with the city glittering below them, Minho dropped to one knee, a velvet box in his hand. Amina, will you marry me? Her gasp caught in the wind, her hands trembling as tears spilled freely. She could barely whisper, yes. And when he slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her deeply under the soul night sky, it wasn't just love anymore. It was destiny. The day after Amina said yes, the world seemed to tilt. Minho was radiant, lighter than anyone had seen him in years. He didn't care about whispers, headlines, or shareholder threats. For him, one truth mattered. He was going to marry the woman who had saved him from himself. But for Amina, reality pressed harder. Every news outlet ran her name. Old photos of her surfaced. Journalists swarmed her workplace, chasing her through the hotel lobby, demanding interviews. Guests whispered when she passed. Some co-workers turned their backs. Others defended her quietly. One night, she confessed to Minho, her voice trembling. Sometimes I wonder if I'm strong enough for this, if I'm enough for you. He took her face in his hands, his eyes fierce. Amina, you're the only thing in my life that feels real. Without you, none of this means anything. Don't ever doubt that. And with that reassurance, they began to plan their future, together. Their wedding was unlike anything Seoul had seen. At Minho's insistence, it wasn't held in a grand hotel ballroom, but in a glass pavilion by the sea in Busan, open to the sky and waves. He wanted simplicity, sincerity, not spectacle. Amina walked down the aisle in a flowing ivory dress, her natural beauty glowing under the sunlight. Minho, in a tailored suit, couldn't take his eyes off her. The guests, some curious, some critical, fell silent as the billionaire CEO visibly fought back tears the moment he saw her. When they spoke their vows, Minho's voice shook. You found me when I was lost. You saw me when the world only saw my money. Amina, I vow to choose you in every storm, in every trial, in every sunrise. You are my beginning, and you will be my forever. Amina, tears streaming, whispered back, you taught me that love isn't about what we have, but who we are together. I promise to stand beside you, even when the world stands against us. I love you, Minho, not the billionaire, but the man whose heart saved mine. When they kissed, the waves crashed against the shore, as though the universe itself applauded their union. But marriage wasn't the end of their battles. It was the beginning of new ones. The tabloids never stopped questioning her. The board remained restless. Even Madame Kong, though present at the wedding, kept her approval guarded. And whispers of sabotage began. Competitors sensing Minho's distraction. Rivals trying to exploit his supposed weakness. Yet, in the privacy of their home, their love only deepened. They cooked together, laughed over burnt rice, and painted silly notes on the refrigerator. On weekends, Minho would take her to the countryside, where they could walk hand in hand without cameras. Some nights, when insomnia tried to claim him again, Amina would sing softly in her mother tongue, lulling him to sleep. And every morning, he woke with his arms around her, whispering, "You're my peace." Still, the storm outside raged louder. A powerful business rival launched a smear campaign, accusing Amina of manipulating her way into Minho's life to gain control of his empire. Investors panicked. Shares dropped. The media swarmed again, painting her as a threat. One evening, after a particularly vicious news broadcast, Amina broke down. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am ruining everything for you. Minho turned to her sharply, his voice raw with emotion. No, you are the reason I'm standing. Don't you see? Without you, I would have drowned long ago. I don't care if I lose companies, money, or power. None of it matters if I lose you. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as though she was the anchor keeping him steady. In that embrace, she knew. No storm could tear them apart. Not the media, not the business world, not even his family's doubts. Their love had started in brokenness. in a moment of desperation. But it had grown into something unshakable, something fierce, something eternal. And together, they were ready to face whatever the world threw next. Months into their marriage, the war against them grew sharper. Minho's rivals, angered by his defiance and sensing a crack in his empire, moved with precision. Rumors spread that Kong Group was unstable under emotional leadership. Anonymous voices leaked private photos of Amina, twisting her image into that of a manipulative outsider. But the harshest blow came from within. One evening, while Minho was abroad for negotiations, Amina received an envelope slipped under the villa door. Inside was a letter, cold and cutting, signed with a familiar name, Madame Kong. If you truly love my son, you will leave him. He has already lost investors, reputation, and influence because of you. If you stay, you will be the ruin of him. Prove your love. Set him free. Amina's hands shook as she read it. Her heart ached with a terrible question. Was love holding him back? When Minho returned home, exhausted but eager to see her, he found her distant. She cooked, she smiled faintly, but something in her eyes had changed. That night, as he reached for her hand in bed, she pulled away. Minho, her voice broke. Maybe your mother is right. Maybe loving me will cost you everything. His chest tightened. You read her letter. Tears spilled from her eyes. She only wants to protect you, and I don't want to be the reason you lose what you've built. Minho's voice shook, fierce with emotion. Amina, listen to me. The only thing I ever truly risked losing was myself. You saved me from that. Do you understand? I would rather have nothing with you than everything without you. But she looked away, torn between love and sacrifice. Days passed in tension. Amina avoided his touch, convinced she had to let him go. She even considered leaving Seoul quietly, vanishing before his love bound her too tightly. But fate intervened. During a board meeting, one of Minho's oldest rivals presented false documents accusing Amina of fraud, claiming she had forged her background to trap him. The room erupted with shock. Minho's blood boiled. Slamming the documents onto the table, he declared, "Do not mistake my silence for weakness. You can question me, but the moment you insult my wife, you insult the very heart of Kong Group. And I will not forgive that." He walked out, his decision made. That night, he returned home, finding Amina packing a small bag. His heart nearly stopped. "You were really going to leave me," he said, voice raw. Her tears streamed. "I thought it was the only way to protect you." Minho strode forward, pulling the bag from her hands and tossing it aside. "Don't you see? The only way they win is if they take you from me. And I will not let that happen." He dropped to his knees, his arms wrapped tightly around her waist, trembling. "Amina, please, don't leave me. You are my life." Something in his desperation broke her walls. She fell into his embrace, sobbing. "I don't want to go. I just didn't want to ruin you." He lifted her chin, his gaze steady, tears in his own eyes. "Then stay and build with me. Let's prove them wrong, together." Their lips met, fierce and unyielding, sealing their choice. Weeks later, the truth of the rivals' fraud came out, clearing Amina's name. Investors who had doubted Minho were silenced by his unwavering leadership, strengthened, not weakened, by love. And even Madame Kong, though proud and stubborn, could not ignore the truth. Her son stood taller, happier, more determined than she had ever seen him. Quietly, one evening, she visited Amina. "I was wrong," she admitted softly, eyes lowering. "You didn't ruin my son. You saved him. For that, I owe you thanks." For the first time, the wall between them began to crack. With storms weathered and love proven, Minho and Amina built their life side by side. Whispers turned into respect, scandal into admiration. People no longer saw the billionaire and the hotel maid, but a man and a woman who had chosen each other against all odds. And on quiet nights, when the city lights twinkled below their villa, Minho would wrap his arms around her and whisper, "We survived the world, Amina, and now, the rest of our life is ours." Years passed, and the story that once filled tabloids turned into a legend whispered with respect. What began as scandal grew into admiration. People who had once mocked now called their love a miracle. Minho's empire not only survived but thrived. Investors who doubted him returned, drawn not just to his brilliance but to his newfound strength. At press conferences, he no longer appeared as the cold, untouchable billionaire. Instead, he spoke with warmth, often crediting his wife for the man he had become. And Amina? She no longer walked with her head bowed. Soul, once unwelcoming, had come to see her differently, not as an outsider, but as the woman who stood unshaken beside one of the most powerful men in Asia. Quietly, she began charities for migrant women and children, using her new platform not for fame, but for good. Even Madame Kong, though proud, softened with time. One afternoon, she held her first grandchild, Amina and Minho's daughter, cradling the baby in her arms. Looking up at Amina, she whispered, "You gave me back my son, and you gave me this gift. For that, you are family." The last of the shadows had lifted. On their 5th anniversary, Minho brought Amina back to the place where it all began, the hotel suite where a broken man had begged a stranger not to leave. He held her hand, eyes glistening. "That night, I thought I was finished. But you became my beginning. You saved me, Amina. Not with money, not with power, but with love." She smiled through tears, cupping his face. "And you saved me, Minho. You showed me that even in a world built on walls, love can break through." They kissed, tender and lingering, as the city stretched wide beneath them. For the world, they were a story of scandal turned triumph. For themselves, they were simply two souls who had found home in each other. And in that embrace, billionaire and hotel attendant, husband and wife, lovers and partners, they sealed a truth that no storm could undo. Their love had been born in brokenness, tested by fire, and crowned by destiny. It was not just a romance. It was forever. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also like, share and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.